late August of 1776, and George Washington and 9,000 of his men find themselves surrounded in Brooklyn, New York, by the largest military force yet assembled in North America. With his back pinned against the East River, Washington must find a way to save his troops and keep the dream of America alive. The fate of the revolution and the future of a newly independent nation hangs in the balance. One wrong move, and the entire army could be captured. Washington himself drawn and quartered, and the whole cause irrevocably doomed. It's a stunning reversal of fortune for the Continental Commander, who only 6 months earlier engineered one of the great masterstrokes in the history of warfare when he chased the British out of Boston with the captured guns of Ticonderoga.
Soldiers of the Continental Army.
Of course, Washington knew then that the world's greatest military wouldn't fold that easily.
Remember the Boston Massacre.
It wasn't a question of whether the British would return, but where.
If they come forward to fight us, remember your fallen brethren.
And the newly minted general had a very strong hunch.
If you think of the 13 colonies, New York was right in the middle. That's where the ports were, the deep ports. That's where the commerce took place. That's where the economy thrived. So Washington got the best of his army, who were on a high, and they went to New York to square off with the British.
Washington knows that when the British forces return to strike New York, their army could number as high as 30,000. His army, meanwhile, has only 9,000 poorly trained, ill-equipped troops to defend New York's 578 miles of shoreline.
Washington's set up to fail. The real estate surrounding Manhattan Island is vast, and much of it is difficult.
The Americans do not have a navy. The Americans have a Continental Army that had barely seen any combat and was now trying to defend multiple islands around New York City. Why does Washington do it? He has to do something to show that this newly created country is going to be able to put up a fight.
Shoulder your firelocks!
Rumor has it that King George has hired Hessian mercenaries, and they're on the way with Admiral Howe's fleet.
Today, we think of George Washington as a hero and fearless leader. But he is, in fact, a man riddled with anxiety. Knowing the British will soon return, he writes countless letters to Congress that underscore his deep concerns about the state of his troops, how poorly armed they are, and practically begging Congress to pay them in a timely manner to keep them from deserting. He sometimes pens these letters multiple times in a single day.
Present your firelocks!
As he trains his fledgling army to defend New York, he has every reason to be worried. His triumph in Boston has kicked the hornet's nest of the British Empire. It's only a matter of time before the full wrath of King George's army will be unleashed.
Down your eyes, man! Pick up that musket!
Outwardly, General Washington exudes confidence, but he's under no illusions about the difficulties that lie before him in New York.
The crucial problem that Washington faces, where are the British going to land?
Washington's generals believe Brooklyn is the key to defending the city.
Brooklyn and other parts of Long Island, they provide all of the sustenance for whatever troops are going to be garrisoning Manhattan. There were some farms on Manhattan as well, but nothing like the agricultural center on Long Island. And to lose it basically makes defending New York impossible.
Still, Washington is unconvinced. He suspects the British will come straight for the grand prize, Manhattan. But rather than going all in there, he hedges his bet.
Washington starts the campaign for New York sort of breaking the #1 rule of military forces. He split his forces between Manhattan and Brooklyn.
He had to make a guess, and he figured maybe that's my best chance. But the decision to split your forces, it's a big gamble, because once your forces are split, if the enemy takes advantage of that, now you're only fighting with half your force, and obviously it's not going to lend towards a good outcome for you.
Come, let's go over my plan.
So to defend the indefensible, they came up with a plan to defend the entire city.
Anticipating how the British will approach, Washington establishes batteries up and down Manhattan with a total of 120 cannons. Wood trunks are placed across the shoreline at key points to prevent the British from landing. Simultaneously, the Continental Army prepares for an assault on Brooklyn, constructing a string of forts that stretch 6 miles and hold another 36 cannons. Also standing guard over Brooklyn are 3,500 troops positioned along a 4-mile ridgeline called the Heights of Gowan.
Here they come!
The colonial military experience at this point is shaped a good bit by what we know as the Battle of Bunker Hill, in which the colonial militia had dug in on this high ground and just bloodied that army far more than it ought to have been bloodied. And Washington believed if they dig into a high ground around New York, the British regulars will attack them in an attempt to destroy that army. It's a sound tactic if you do it right, because it's going to force your opponent to attack into the teeth of what you've made ready for your opponent.
Lookouts report the sightings of British ships off the coast of Sandy Hook, Your Excellency.
We're not ready for this.
At the end of June, after months of nervous anticipation, the moment of truth arrives as a formidable enemy fleet appears on the eastern horizon.
What unfolds before Washington's spyglass is something of a magnitude he hasn't seen before.
Initially, a first wave of 45 warships arrive and drop their anchors in New York Harbor. Soon, a full fleet of 120 ships fill the harbor. The greatest naval show of force the New World has ever seen. And the British are just getting started.
Now, the mindset of the British at the time was, we're going to roll right through these guys. We're not going to lose again. We're going to be taking on this Continental Army, but we're going to show them what we're really made of.
General Howe's army is here. Colonel Reed, send a message to Congress. Ask if they plan on declaring independence before this city is overrun by the British.
Yes, Your Excellency.
As the daunting odds against him become ever more clear, Washington holds out hope for a secret weapon, more powerful than any cannon, the promise of freedom. Every army needs a cause worth fighting for, and while the reason for the past year's campaigns against the British has been clear from the start, the ultimate objective has not. Up until now, Washington has been asking his men to leave their families, their fields and farms, and risk their lives for an abstract possibility. But for them to really give their all, and for the people of America to unite unequivocally in support of the Continental Army, the end goal must be transformative and unmistakable. It must be independence.
Washington is frustrated by what he sees as congressional dithering on a Declaration of Independence. And he will write letters, and he will even petition Congress personally to pass such a document.
They do not hesitate to remind us that the punishment for treason is hanging.
Hanging would be a blessing, sir. For while our bodies still live, we would have our bowels torn out and burnt before our faces.
If we are to die, gentlemen,
let us die
as a free people, not as slaves to tyranny. We must act now. Let us declare our independence.
A cause to fight for is hugely important. Soldiers want to feel that they are performing a mission of consequence, a mission that is larger than self. And what larger purpose could there be than achieving independence for the United States of America? So that was a true rallying cause and very, very important.
Sir.
What do we have here?
When the Declaration was finally issued, Washington had copies printed and distributed to all of his officers. He had it read to his soldiers, and it was a very symbolic moment.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
The Declaration of Independence has an electric effect on the troops in Manhattan, as well as many of the citizens in Manhattan.
The crowd goes nuts. They then march down Broadway to a statue of King George on horseback. They then rip down the statue in a scene reminiscent of taking down Lenin's statue after the fall of the communism in Eastern Europe. They then smash up the statue into musket balls and then take the head of King George and parade it through the streets.
Congress has given Washington what he wants. They've declared independence. And now all he has to do is take on the greatest army the world has ever known.